We're heading straight to Belfast now. It has just been announced that there has been a major data and security breach involving officers at the Police Service of Northern Ireland. The Assistant Chief Constable of the PSNI, Chris Todd, has been speaking in the last few minutes. Let's have a listen.
From Northern Ireland related terrorism, and this is the last thing that anybody in the organisation wants to be hearing this evening. So I owe it to all of my colleagues to make sure that this is investigated thoroughly, and we've initiated that. We'll keep the Police Board informed, we'll keep all the staff associations informed of that investigation, and we've been engaging with them throughout the afternoon. The information was taken down very quickly, but nevertheless I do appreciate the concern that it will cause. We'll seek to find the extent to which that has been viewed, but what I would say is, although the error was our own, once that information was out there, if anybody did have access to it, I would ask them to delete it straight away.
Could I begin by asking you, where was the information published and how long was it publicly accessible, and who drew your attention to it?
So it was published on a legitimate website. The requester used this facility to make the request. We believe it was uploaded about 2:30 this afternoon. It came to my attention as the CIRO, the Senior Information Risk Owner, at about 4 p.m. this afternoon, and with the cooperation of the host provider, it was taken down within the hour.
Okay, so by 5 o'clock it was removed from the website, so potentially it was viewable by the public for 2.5 to 3 hours.
That's correct, yes.
Did anyone in the PSNI at command level know that this information had been released, and who actually checked what was being released?
I was the first person at command level to be made aware of this, and it was brought to my attention by colleagues within the service. As soon as we confirmed it, we got in touch with the host provider and ensured that the information was taken down and initiated investigation, informed the Information Commissioner's office.
So other than the person who released this information, it was unbeknownst to the PSNI until they saw it on the website?
That's correct, yes.
How useful would this information be to a terrorist organisation?
It is limited to surname and initial only. So there's no other personal identifiable information contained within the information that was published, but that will be still of significant concern to many of my colleagues. I know that, and we will ensure that we do everything we can to mitigate any security risks that are identified.
Will you know how closely guarded many police staff are about their occupations, and the very fact that their surnames are out there, as well as their place of work, could be of some use, albeit the information did not contain things like private home addresses?
I absolutely do appreciate those concerns. I've written to all of my colleagues across the whole of the service this evening, explained to them the actions that we're taking, given them information to help them further protect their own personal security and those around them, and we will listen to the concerns of all of our colleagues individually and address any concerns that are raised.
ACC Todd, is your assessment that officers' personal security has been compromised by this, and given the sort of loss of trust from officers can't be costed and will be massive, do you want to take the opportunity to apologise to officers on behalf of the PSNI?
I do apologise to officers. This is unacceptable. In terms of the security for individuals, there's nothing at the moment to suggest that there's any immediate security concerns, but we have put actions in place to ensure that if anything does arise, we will be aware of that, and then we can mitigate accordingly.
Do you think anyone should be considering their position tonight, ACC?
This is human error. We've looked into the circumstances. We'll continue with our investigation, but the very early considerations are that this is simple human error. The people who have been involved in the process have acted in good faith. We've identified some steps that we can take to ensure that it doesn't happen again. It is regrettable, but it is simple human error.
And just for pure clarity, this is every serving police officer in Northern Ireland at the moment has had information compromised?
Every police officer and member of police staff.
What more can you tell us about the circumstances in which the spreadsheet or the additional information was attached to the AFOI, and importantly, why was that not signed off or double checked before its release?
There are steps and measures that we take to sign off releases through freedom of information requests. They differ in different circumstances. Because the data shouldn't have been sensitive, it should have just been numbers of officers and staff at every rank and grade. It only required a certain level of sign-off. Regrettably, those measures were not sufficient for all the people in the chain to identify that embedded within what seemed like a very innocent and sensible release was further source data. But we understand how that's happened now, and we understand that there are measures we can put in place to mitigate against that in the future. So I'm fortunate that it took this incident to identify that vulnerability.
Anyone, one final question?
I suppose given the seriousness of the data breach, is this an issue that the Chief Constable should be addressing the media on?
The Chief Constable is aware. I'm the duty officer and I'm the senior information risk owner, so I take responsibility for this. Beg your pardon?
Is the Chief Constable coming back from the summer break?
I can't speak on behalf of the Chief Constable, but he is certainly aware of this situation as it's developed today.
Okay, everybody, thank you.
Well, let's try and make a little bit of sense of what we were hearing there from Assistant Chief Constable Chris Todd of the Police Service of Northern Ireland. A lot of information there. In essence, some details were released at some point this afternoon relating to every police officer and member of staff. The Police Federation already demanding answers on this, given that surnames, staff numbers, roles and where officers were based were published accidentally. Hearing as well from the Assistant Chief Constable that this will now be investigated thoroughly. The reason for that, well, has anyone's personal security been compromised? The work that the PSNI has done over the years with paramilitaries would certainly lead people to be worried about that. But again, from the Assistant Chief Constable, we heard that whilst this was, in his words, unacceptable, currently he believes that there is nothing that suggests any immediate security concerns. However, procedures have been put in place to mitigate any risk of that. I suspect quite a bit more on this story to come.